The Police Minister, General Bheki Cele, says violent crimes against women and children remain high in the country. Cele has presented the quarterly crime statistics in Pretoria. This reflects on crimes reported to the South African Police Service from the 1st of July to the 30th of September 2022. As South Africa has begun observing 16 days of activism to shine a spotlight on violence against women and children, we are now joined via Zoom by UNICEF South Africa's representative, Christine Muhigana. Thank you so very much for joining us here on SABC News, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
All right, let's start here then. I mean, as vulnerable as they are, children do fall prey to violence either directed to them or, they experience third party in violent households. Let's talk about this and really how grave the situation is at this point. I mean, every other day, I must admit, we are reporting on these sort of crimes, as news stations, as media. Perhaps if we can actually get an idea of just how bad the situation really is.
The situation is really bad, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better whenever we receive the updates or the new statistics from the South African police. The numbers are horrendous. For this last period, we're talking about 315 murdered children, 294 who survived attempted murder, 1,895 who suffered serious bodily harm. I mean, how worse can it get? And this is actually more children harmed than in the previous previous year. During the same period last year, this has increased. So it's just mind-boggling that all we seem to be able to do is hear that our actions are actually not having any impact.
Mm-hmm. All right, so of course then you do say that there is this increase, and in your observation as UNICEF, let's talk about what you found to be the key factors that are contributing to child murders in South Africa. It's not necessarily just an issue of poverty. I think that's also one of the things that have been raised as being one of the, poverty is the root of many of the problems, but it surely can't be just the issue of poverty. What are the factors that are contributing to this high rate of child abuse and child murders?
So it is poverty, it is mental health issues, it is the number of stress factors that parents, caregivers go through when they have to raise their children. It is about the environment of violence that we live in. There is a number of stress factors, of structural factors that contribute to the situation in which we are. And we need to make sure that we work on each and every one of those stresses, and we need to do it urgently. We need to do much more than we are doing today. We need to make sure that it's a society-wide effort. It's a multi-sector effort because it's at various levels. It's structural levels. It's also sometimes just the time and place at which a child is and he or she gets hurt. So it's a multiplicity of issues, and we need to make sure that we get a handle of what's going on so that we put a stop to this situation.
Yeah, we've just entered the 16 days of activism against women and child abuse. How do these sort of initiatives or how can these initiatives be impactful in the protection of children and highlighting the violence that is directed to them? I mean, we observe this every year, but, year on year, and as you say, these crimes are actually on the increase. So is this even useful at all?
It is useful. We need to have these kinds of times. It should be beyond the 16 days. It should be 365 days of activisms against gender-based violence, femicide, and violence against children. What these campaigns do is give us the opportunity to shine a light on something that's really unacceptable, have a hard look at what it is that we are doing, why it isn't having any lasting impact, and who else needs to be there. How do we make sure that at the community level, at the household level, we have a sense of what's going on. When we have signs that something may, put a child in harm, in serious harm, in death threats, that something is done so that the child is being saved and put into a safe place.
All right. What programs do you have planned during this 16 days as UNICEF, of course, as an organization that has really been outspoken on children's rights, child abuse, and of course, sadly, child murders too?
Right. So during this period of 16 days of activism, we're joining the world. The motto is activism against gender-based violence and violence against children. We're going to support the Department of Women, Youth and People with Disabilities in all the activities that they are conducting during this time. We will join, of course, other departments, other actors as well. And in South Africa, very rightly so, the theme is to support women's empowerment and women's economic growth, because we know that oftentimes, most of the time, if a woman is able to care for her family, is able to care for her children, they will be in safer hands. So they need to be empowered, they need to be independent, they need to be able to get out of the situations that put them in violent context, so they can take care of their children and their families.
All right, so Christine, thanks very much for giving us your time. We certainly do appreciate it here on SABC News, ma'am.
Thank you for the opportunity, and let's act, all of us, against gender-based violence and violence against children.
All right. That is Christine Muhigana, who is a UNICEF South Africa representative.